Get out of here now. You're not my real father. You were just a favor my parents did out of pity." The words cut through the air like broken glass in the elegant living room of the Beverly Hills home. 62-year-old David Miller stood at the door with a small suitcase in his hands, watching Emily scream like a spoiled child. The man who had worked 3 jobs to pay for her college, who had slept on the couch so she could have the bigger bedroom, who had saved every penny to give her a life he never had, was now being treated like trash in his own home. The irony was bitter. 23 years ago, when Emily's biological parents died in a car accident, she was just a scared 5-year-old. David, who worked as the family's private driver, was the only person willing to take responsibility. No wealthy relatives or close family friends wanted to bother with an orphan. "Your biological parents left you in my care when they were only 19. Emily, I raised you as my own daughter." David replied with a calmness that surprised even himself, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. "Exactly. You raised me. You did your job as a babysitter. And now you can leave." Emily yelled, her perfectly brushed blonde hair swaying with fury. "I'm 28 years old, a successful lawyer. I have this beautiful house and a rich fiancé. I don't need you messing up my life anymore." Alex Sterling, the 35-year-old patrician fiancé and heir to a construction company, watched from the Italian leather armchair with a satisfied smile. His perfectly manicured nails drummed on the armrest as he savored the spectacle. "Finally, love. It's about time," he murmured without even looking at David. "You deserve better than well this." This echoed through the room with a venom David knew well. In the last 2 years since Emily started dating Alex, things had changed dramatically. Introductions to friends no longer included the words "my father." Parties, he was introduced as David, who helped me when I was a child. Invitations to family dinners disappeared when Alex suggested it would be embarrassing for Emily's career. David had noticed the looks, the conversations that stopped when he entered the room, the embarrassment Emily felt when her wealthy friends asked about the older man who lived with her. She had never called him dad in public since she started working at the elite Los Angeles law firm. "Do you know what your country club friends say about me living here?" Emily continued, her cheeks red with anger. "They think it's weird. A respected lawyer living with what, Emily?" David asked softly, but she couldn't finish the sentence. The words stuck in her throat, but everyone knew exactly what she meant. Alex wasn't as discreet. "With someone who clearly isn't part of our social circle," he added, adjusting the $50,000 watch on his wrist. "Nothing personal, David, but you have to understand that appearances matter in our world." David remembered the sleepless nights studying with Emily for her high school exams, the savings he made selling his car to pay for her college books, the weekends working as a security guard at events to earn extra money for their prom outfits, all while she slept peacefully, dreaming of the bright future he was building for her. "Get your things and get out of my sight," Emily continued, pointing to the door as if dismissing a servant. "I never want to see you again, ever. And take those ridiculous pictures of me when I was a kid. They don't match the decor. The photos." David looked at the shelf where dozens of photos of Emily's childhood had once stood. Now there were only 3 left, hidden behind tennis trophies and horse riding cups. The rest had mysteriously disappeared after Alex moved into the house. David looked around the house he had helped to buy, the entrance he had renovated in the early mornings after work, the garden he had planted, so Emily would have a beautiful place to play. He remembered the 5-year-old girl who cried herself to sleep and would only calm down when he sang softly by her bedside, the same girl who now saw him as a dead weight in her perfect white life. "It's okay, Emily," he said simply, adjusting the strap of his briefcase on his shoulder. His eyes revealed a strange serenity, like someone who was keeping a secret too powerful to reveal before the right time. Alex laughed loudly, as if she had just heard an inside joke. "I'm glad you're being reasonable. It makes it easier for everyone." As he walked toward the door, David smiled slightly. Emily had no idea what she had just lost. None of them did. For years, he had kept quiet about certain things, about investments he had made in secret, about connections he had built away from prying eyes, about the real reason he never had to worry about money, even though he worked at menial jobs. If you're feeling angry at this absurd ingratitude, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because this story will show you that underestimating someone can be the biggest mistake of your life. David drove his old pickup truck through the streets of Beverly Hills, watching the perfectly aligned mansions in the rear-view mirror. 23 years of sacrifice had just been thrown away because of the social embarrassment of a daughter he had raised with so much love. The phone rang. It was Emily. "David, I forgot to tell you. I need you to remove all your things from the garage, too. Alex is renovating the space for a private gym." Her voice sounded cold, distant, as if she were talking to a service provider. "And another thing, please don't show up at my office anymore. The partners have made some uncomfortable comments." David gripped the steering wheel tighter. The garage he had built himself on weekends, brick by brick, would now be erased from history as if it had never existed. "I understand," he replied simply. "Great. Oh, and David." Emily paused dramatically. "It would be best if you didn't mention to anyone who raised me. It could cause misunderstandings about our family background." The call ended without a goodbye. David parked in front of a small cafe on the outskirts of town where he had worked as a night cleaner years ago to pay for Emily's school books. The place was exactly the same, simple and cozy, completely different from the fancy restaurants Emily now frequented with Alex. Inside the cafe, he found Samuel Lee, an old friend from hard times. Samuel had been his colleague at the cleaning company and now ran his own security business. "David, man, I haven't seen you in ages." Samuel greeted him with a genuine smile. "How's Emily? I hear she's become a famous lawyer." David took a deep breath. "Actually, Samuel, that's what I need to talk to you about." As David recounted the events of the day, Samuel listened silently, his face darkening with every detail. When David finished, Samuel shook his head in disapproval. "After all you did for her, man. I remember when you sold your lunch to buy school supplies for the girl. You worked 3 shifts and still helped her with her homework in the middle of the night." "She doesn't remember that," David muttered, stirring his now cold coffee. "Or she pretends she doesn't," Samuel corrected. "You know this isn't just about social embarrassment, right? It's about money. This Alex guy probably filled her head with ideas about inheritance, family wealth." David nodded slowly. Over the past few months, he had noticed Alex asking subtle questions about family financial planning and estate planning. The young man had automatically assumed that David had nothing of value to leave behind. "The funny thing," David said with a wry smile, "is that they think they know everything about me." Samuel raised his eyebrows. "Like what? Remember those investments I started making when Emily was in college? The tech company stock I bought with the settlement money for my brother's accident. I vaguely remember. You said it was a risk, but worth a shot." David took his cell phone out of his pocket and showed Samuel the screen. It was a banking app showing an investment account. Samuel almost choked on his coffee. $5.5 million. "David, is that real? The company I invested in has grown 1,200% in the last 15 years. I never told Emily because I wanted to make sure she loved me for who I am, not what I have." David calmly put his phone away. "Looks like I found out the answer today." Samuel was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "And now, what are you going to do?" David smiled for the first time that day, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized he held all the cards in a game he thought he was losing. "First, I'm going to give them exactly what they asked for. I'm going to walk out of Emily's life completely. No drama, no fuss." David stood up from the table. "Then I'm going to show this whole town who David Miller really is." "How?" Samuel asked, intrigued. "Do you still have contacts in the business community?" "A few." "Why?" David grabbed a napkin and wrote down a number. "Call this guy tomorrow morning. Tell him you have a client interested in making significant investments in the area. Don't mention my name yet." Samuel looked at the number. It was the phone number for Taylor and Associates, one of the most exclusive financial consulting firms in Los Angeles. "David, what are you planning?" "Emily wants me to disappear from her life because she considers me a social embarrassment." David adjusted his cap and walked toward the door. I'll give her exactly that. I'll disappear from the David she knows and reemerge as someone she could never imagine. Each new humiliation had only fueled something inside him that his oppressors couldn't see. A quiet determination strengthened by the very injustice they tried to impose on him. What those privileged people didn't know was that every act of contempt was signing their own surprise sentence. The next morning, Samuel made the call to Taylor and Associates as agreed. The receptionist, accustomed to elite clients, almost hung up when she heard it was about an investor interested in opportunities in the region. What is the client's net worth? She asked coldly. Between $5 and $6 million, Samuel replied, trying to keep his voice natural. The tone changed instantly. One moment, please. I'll transfer you to Mr. Taylor. Meanwhile, David was in a modest hotel in the city center, far from the glitz of Beverly Hills, organizing documents he had kept in a safe for years. Stock certificates, bank statements, investment receipts, all meticulously filed and updated. His phone rang. It was Emily. David, I need you to sign some papers, she said without even saying hello. It's about the transfer of ownership of the house. Since you lived with us, there are some legal issues we need to resolve. What kind of issues? David asked, even though he already knew the answer. Alex spoke to his lawyer. Apparently, since you lived in the house for over 2 years, you may have some legal claim to the property. We need a formal waiver. David smiled wryly. Alex was being even greedier than he had imagined. I see. And where am I supposed to sign these papers? At Alex's lawyer's office tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Don't be late, because we have an important dinner afterward. I'll be there on time. Emily hung up without saying goodbye. 2 hours later, David was sitting in the glass and marble office of Taylor and Associates, being treated like royalty. Andrew Taylor, a 50-year-old man in a $3,000 suit, practically bowed when he greeted him. Mr. Miller, it's an honor to have you here. Your investments in technology have been brilliant. Value Tech has grown extraordinarily in the last 15 years. David nodded calmly. I was lucky to get in early. Now I want to diversify. Of course. What area are you thinking about? Commercial real estate? Specifically, I'm interested in properties that can have a positive social impact. David paused deliberately. Are you familiar with the area where they're building those new luxury residential complexes? Taylor perked up. Beverly Hills. Of course, there are some excellent opportunities there. Actually, I'm thinking of something different. I want to invest in community centers, mentoring programs for underprivileged youth, scholarships. David let the sentence hang in the air. Places where people like me, who came from humble beginnings, can help the next generation. Taylor blinked, clearly confused by the direction of the conversation. But the size of David's investment spoke louder than any hesitation. That's an admirable project, Mr. Miller. I can organize an event to introduce you to the key players in the region. Many important people would like to meet you. Important people. David feigned interest. Like who? Well, elite lawyers, business people, heirs to large fortunes. The kind of networking that can open many doors. David smiled. That would be perfect. That afternoon, Emily was at the law firm where she worked, telling her colleagues how she had finally resolved the situation with David. You can't imagine the relief, she said during lunch at the executive floor French restaurant. Now I can focus on what really matters. Alex and I are planning a $300,000 wedding at the country club. Sarah, a colleague, raised her eyebrows. $300,000? That's a fortune. Alex's father is paying for everything. He said it's worth investing in the family image. Emily twirled her $50,000 engagement ring on her finger. By the way, do you guys know anyone who needs a driver? David is experienced, punctual. Laughter echoed around the table. Emily felt validated by her friend's approval. What she didn't know was that just 3 blocks away, David was signing a contract to sponsor a scholarship program worth $200,000 a year. The program would be launched at a charity gala the following week at the same country club where Emily planned to get married. Taylor was ecstatic. Mr. Miller, this event will bring together the cream of Los Angeles society. It will be an unforgettable evening. David flipped through the guest list Taylor had prepared. There it was. Emily Thompson and Alex Sterling. Are they confirmed? David asked, pointing to the names. Yes, Mr. Sterling is the son of one of our biggest clients. Miss Thompson works at the law firm. They're well known on the social circuit. David calmly closed the folder. Perfect. It's going to be a really special evening. As he left the office, David glanced at his reflection in the building's mirrored window. For 23 years, he had been just David, the man who took care of Emily, who worked quietly, who remained in the shadows. In 1 week, he would reemerge as something his adopted daughter could never imagine. What Emily and Alex couldn't see was that every act of contempt had only strengthened the resolve of a man they never truly knew. They were about to discover that underestimating someone can be the most costly mistake a person ever makes. The night of the charity gala arrived with pomp and circumstance. The Beverly Hills Country Club was unrecognizable, decorated with golden lights and flower arrangements that cost more than many people earn in a year. Luxury cars paraded through the main entrance as photographers jostled for the best shots of the distinguished guests. Emily and Alex arrived in style in his red Porsche. She wearing an $8,000 designer dress and he sporting an impeccable Italian tuxedo. Both felt at home in this environment of ostentation and privilege. Finally, an event worthy of us, Emily commented, adjusting the pearl necklace Alex had given her as a gift. No inappropriate people to ruin the evening. Alex laughed, offering her his arm. That's the way it should be, honey. People like us deserve to be among people like us. They entered the main hall, greeting acquaintances and posing for photos. Emily was beaming, feeling validated by the exclusive environment. Rumor had it that the mysterious host was a millionaire investor who was considering large donations to the local community. Who is the organizer of this event? Emily asked Sarah, her colleague from the office. No one knows for sure. They say it's a man named David Miller, but he hasn't shown up yet. Apparently, he's very discreet and prefers to work behind the scenes. Emily frowned. The name sounded familiar, but in the hustle and bustle of the evening, she couldn't make the connection. The official presentation began at 8 o'clock sharp. Andrew Taylor, elegant in his tuxedo, took the stage with a beaming smile. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I introduce the man who made this evening possible. A visionary who has decided to invest $2 million in scholarships for underprivileged youth in addition to funding 3 community centers in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. Applause echoed through the hall. Emily and Alex applauded mechanically, more interested in networking than philanthropy. A man who proves that true wealth lies in lifting others to your level. Please welcome David Miller. Emily stopped applauding. The blood ran cold in her veins. David took the stage with elegance, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His demeanor was different, more confident, more imposing. When the spotlight illuminated him completely, an awkward silence fell over the ballroom. Good evening, David said into the microphone, his voice echoing clearly throughout the room. Thank you for being here to support a cause that is very dear to me, ensuring that talented young people have the same opportunities, regardless of their social background or skin color. Emily felt her legs go weak. Alex looked at her confused, noticing her sudden pallor. You must be wondering why I chose to invest specifically in education, David continued, his eyes scanning the crowd until they found Emily. The answer is simple. A few days ago, I discovered in the most painful way possible that raising a person with love does not guarantee that she will repay you with respect. A murmur ran through the room. Photographers began to capture the palpable tension in the air. I spent 23 years raising a young woman as if she were my own daughter. I worked 3 jobs, sold my belongings, gave up everything to give her the best education possible. David paused, letting the weight of his words echo. A week ago, I was kicked out of my home because my presence was inappropriate for her social circle. Emily tried to slip out discreetly, but the curious glances of the guests paralyzed her. Alex whispered furiously, "Is that him? Is that your David? But do you know what hurt me the most? David continued, now looking directly at Emily. It wasn't being called inappropriate. It was realizing that I raised a person who measures the value of others by the size of their bank accounts. Taylor approached the microphone. Mr. Miller, perhaps we should focus on the charity. David smiled kindly. Of course, Andrew, the charity. He took a folder from his inside jacket pocket. These $200,000 a year scholarships will ensure that talented young people are not judged by their appearance or background, something that, unfortunately, some people never learn to value. The room was completely silent. Emily felt all eyes on her, some curious, others beginning to understand the situation. Alex, calculating as always, tried to approach her. David, what a wonderful surprise. Emily was just saying how much she missed you. Please, Mr. Sterling, David interrupted politely. There's no need to pretend. Last week, you said I wasn't part of your social circle. You were right. In fact, I'm not part of circles that measure people's worth by the color of their skin or the size of their bank accounts. The audience began to murmur louder. Some people took photos discreetly. Emily knew that by the end of the night, all of Beverly Hills would be talking about the scandal. But you know what's funny? David chuckled. All these years, while Emily was ashamed to introduce me as her father, I was quietly building something she never imagined. The $5.5 million I'm donating today came from investments I made over the years, saving every penny I had left after paying for her education. Emily felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. $5.5 million. Alex went pale, mentally calculating how much money had just slipped through his fingers. So yes, David concluded, I'm leaving your social circle. I'm joining a much better one. The circle of those who use their prosperity to lift others up, not to humiliate them. The applause was deafening. People rose to their feet, cheering David, while Emily remained petrified, knowing she had just lost not only $5 million, but her reputation throughout Beverly Hills. At that moment, as the cameras captured every second of her public humiliation, Emily finally understood that she had completely underestimated the man who raised her. But the question that hung in the air was devastating. Was it possible to regain someone's respect after completely destroying the trust that took a lifetime to build? 3 months after the gala, David sat in his new office in downtown Los Angeles, watching the city bustle below from the windows of the 23rd floor. The sign on the door reads Foundation, Transforming Lives Through Education. The phone rang. It was Samuel Lee, now the Foundation's executive director. David, we have 50 more scholarship applicants this month. And that documentary about your story is going to be shown on national television next week. David smiled. What had started as a $2 million donation had turned into a $15 million foundation funded by other investors who had been inspired by his story. Universities across the country now offered programs in partnership with the Miller Foundation. What else is new? David asked, even though he already knew the answer. Emily lost her job at the law firm. Apparently, the partners felt that the negative exposure could affect the firm's reputation. Alex was also fired from his father's construction company. It seems the Sterling family didn't like the publicity at all. David shook his head, feeling no satisfaction at their suffering, only a deep sadness for the daughter he had lost to greed and prejudice. That same afternoon, Emily was sitting in a cheap cafe in downtown, far from the fancy restaurants of Beverly Hills. Her savings were gone. Her luxury apartment had been sold to pay off debts, and Alex had ended their relationship the morning after the gala. I can't be associated with this mess, he had said coldly. My reputation is at stake. Emily's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Emily. It's me, David. She was silent for a moment, her heart racing. David, You don't have to say anything. I know you're going through a difficult time. I want to make you an offer. Emily felt a glimmer of hope. What kind of offer? A job at the foundation. Starting salary. No special privileges. You'll start by organizing documents and learning about the scholarship program. I'll take it, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But there's one condition, David continued. You'll work directly with disadvantaged young people. You'll get to know their stories. You'll understand what it means to fight for opportunities. And if you really change, if you learn what respect and humility are, maybe we can rebuild our relationship. I promise, David. I was completely wrong. Don't promise me, Emily. Prove it. 6 months later, Emily was in the foundation's office helping a 17-year-old boy fill out an application for an engineering scholarship. The boy, who was black and from a poor family, reminded her of how patient and dedicated David had been during her own education. "Thank you, Miss Emily. This opportunity means everything to me," the young man said. At that moment, looking at the hopeful smile on that boy's face, Emily finally understood. David hadn't taken revenge on her by destroying her life. He had given her the chance to rebuild it based on true values. David watched from the office doorway. Emily had been working at the foundation for 6 months, earning a modest salary, living in a modest apartment, and for the first time in years, she seemed genuinely happy helping other people. "She's changing," Samuel commented, approaching David. "She's learning what I've tried to teach her all her life, that a person's value isn't in their bank account, but in how much they can lift others up." That night, Emily called David. "Dad," she said, using the word for the first time in years. "I wanted to thank you for not giving up on me even when I deserved it." David smiled, feeling his heart warm. Sometimes people have to lose everything to find out what really matters. "Daughter." David Miller's story became a national phenomenon. Universities invited him to speak. Business leaders sought partnerships with his foundation, and young people from across the country wrote letters thanking him for the opportunities they had received. Alex Sterling, on the other hand, never fully recovered. His family disowned him. His career stagnated, and he became an example of how arrogance and prejudice can destroy a life. 2 years later, David stood on stage at Harvard University speaking to an audience of 500 students about overcoming adversity and social justice. "I learned that the best revenge is not to destroy those who hurt us," he said, his voice echoing through the auditorium. "It is to build something so powerful and positive that it transforms not only our lives but the lives of everyone around us." In the front row, Emily watched proudly. Now a social work graduate of her adoptive father's foundation, she had found her true calling, helping other young people overcome the same social barriers that had nearly destroyed her. David concluded his speech. "When someone rejects you because of prejudice, don't let it diminish you. Use that pain as fuel to prove that a person's worth can never be measured by the color of their skin or the address where they live. Because in the end, those who judge by the wrong values always find out too late that they missed the opportunity to know someone truly special." The applause was deafening. But David knew that the real victory was not in that moment of glory. It was in Emily finding her way back to herself. It was in the thousands of young people who now had opportunities they would never have had without the foundation. It was in the proof that it is possible to turn pain into purpose and rejection into redemption. If you were moved by this story of overcoming adversity and justice, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us. Have you ever been underestimated by someone? How did you react? Because sometimes the greatest injustices in life are just the universe preparing us to discover a strength we didn't even know we had. David Miller tried to be rejected by his own daughter, but ended up discovering that his true family was all the lives he could touch. He learned that the best revenge is not to make others suffer. It is to achieve a level of success and purpose that his enemies could never imagine, turning every act of contempt into fuel to light the way for those who truly deserve our energy.